Every time Linux gaming comes up, publishers trot out this tired bloody excuse about economics, about how it don't make financial sense to support a platform with such a tiny market share. And for years, most people just nodded along and accepted that. Well, today we're tearing that argument apart piece by piece, because it's not an economic problem. It never was. Alright, you lot. Let me start with actually giving these publishers the moment, because I'm not some frothing ideologue who ignores inconvenient facts. On paper, their argument sounds reasonable. Linux on Steam sits at roughly 3.5% market share. That's a small number. And if you're an executive at EA or Ubisoft staring at a spreadsheet, 3.5% don't exactly scream invest millions here. Fair enough, I'll give you that on face value. Then there's fragmentation. Linux isn't one operating system. It's hundreds of distributions, each with their own quirks, their own package managers, their own display servers. You got X11, you got Wayland, you've got dependency chains that can break a game on one distro even when it runs perfectly on another. Native ports aren't just a recompile job. You need dedicated QA pipelines, dedicated support staff, dedicated testing environments. That costs brass, real brass. And publishers will tell you that brass is better spent on platforms where 95% of customers actually live. Anti-cheat's another big one they'll love trotting out. Kernel-level solutions like Vanguard rely on a chain of trust from TPM through secure boot into a lockdown kernel. And Linux, by design, lets users compile their own kernels, which fundamentally breaks that chain. So publishers throw their hands up, say it can't be done on Linux, walk away feeling justified. Now if I stopped there, you'd think they had a point. And honestly, 5 years ago they probably did. But this isn't 5 years ago. Every single one of those arguments has been systematically dismantled by reality, and I'm about to show you exactly how. Let's start with that 3% figure, because it's doing a lot of heavy lifting for people who don't want to look deeper. Yeah, globally, Linux sits around 3.5% on Steam as of late 2025. But here's what nobody mentions. Among English-speaking Steam users, Linux is actually sitting at over 7%. 7. That global number gets constantly dragged down by massive spikes in Chinese internet cafe data that skews regional representation. So right away, publishers are making decisions based on a number that don't reflect their actual Western audience properly. But let's talk raw humans, not percentages. 3.5% of Steam user base translates to over 4 million active monthly users. 4 million people who are actively buying and playing games every single month. And that number saw a 57% year-over-year jump. This is a market segment growing faster than any other platform demographic right now. And here's where it gets properly mental. Linux took 8 years to reach 1% at Steam's user base. Another 3 years to hit 2%. Then just over 2 years to reach 3%. And only 8 months to climb to 4%. Platform's growing fast. Network effects are kicking in hard. But look at Linux itself. Desktop Linux globally has cracked 4.7% and crossed 5% in America for the first time ever in mid-2025. Zorin OS alone picked up 780,000 downloads from Windows machines in a single month after Microsoft killed Windows 10 support. That's one distro. Factor in Mint, Ubuntu, Fedora, CachyOS, Bazzite. You're looking at a migration wave that's only just getting started. Dell reckons roughly 500 million PCs worldwide can't even run Windows 11 because of hardware requirements. 500 million orphaned machines with nowhere to go except Linux. And Microsoft's consumer extended support runs out October 2026. So there's another cliff coming that will push even more people across. Tell me again how this market ain't worth investing in. But let's tackle their favourite excuse, anti-cheat. This is where publishers get to play victim and pretend their hands are tied by technical impossibility, which is absolute bollocks when you actually look at what's already been achieved. Overwatch runs flawlessly on Linux through Proton using Blizzard's defense matrix system without requiring kernel-level rootkit. Sniper Elite Resistance shipped with Denuvo anti-cheat that just works on Linux out of box. Halo Infinite runs through Proton with easy anti-cheat enabled. These are indie experiments. The major multiplayer titles from major studios proving that it can be absolutely done when a publisher actually bothers. But what really grinds me gears about this whole conversation is everyone treats anti-cheat as a binary Linux or Windows problem when actually it's an industry-wide innovation failure. If you move detection server-side and use behavioural AI to analyse player movement patterns, input timings and statistical anomalies, you don't just solve Linux compatibility. You solve cheating on every platform simultaneously. You're no longer playing whack-a-mole with client-side exploits that hackers reverse engineer within a week anyway. You're watching behaviour patterns that no kernel hack can mask regardless of what operating system someone's running. It's not a Linux win. That's a paradigm shift for competitive gaming as a whole. These lazy bastards are sleeping on it because it requires actual engineering vision instead of just slapping Denuvo or Vanguard on everything and calling it a day. 95% of cheaters stay on Windows anyway because it's easier. Download an executable, run as admin, job done. Building a cheat for Linux requires manual compiling and kernel knowledge, which immediately filters out script kiddies. So this idea that Linux is some cheater's paradise is backwards. It's actually harder to cheat on. But publishers can't use the standard Windows policing tools there. So instead of innovating, they just block an entire platform. First company to properly crack server-side behavioural detection won't just win over Linux gamers. They'll become an industry standard overnight. Right now, nobody with enough brass to fund it can be asked to try. Over 25,000 gaming industry jobs were lost across 2023 and 2024. 25,000 skilled engineers, QA testers, designers, and developers thrown out on their asses so quarterly earnings would look healthier for shareholders. Layoffs peaked in early 2024 with over 8,500 jobs gone in a single quarter alone. A third of all US game industry workers were laid off in just 2 years according to GDC's own survey. Microsoft axed over 9,000 employees while simultaneously posting record revenue and record operating income. They weren't cutting because they were skint, they were cutting because Wall Street rewards headcount reduction like it's some sort of efficiency medal. EA pulled in $500 million in revenue last fiscal year. Tech2 banked $5.3 billion. Ubisoft, even in their sorry state, managed over $2 billion. These aren't companies scraping pennies out of couch cushions. A dedicated Linux compatibility team of 20 to 30 engineers would be a rounding error to these balance sheets. Absolute pocket change. Less than what some of these companies spend on a single marketing campaign for a game that flops inside a fortnight. They had thousands of talented people who could have formed backbone of dedicated alternative platform teams. Engineers who understood build pipelines. QA specialists who could have run Linux testing environments. Developers who could have optimized native builds or improved Proton compatibility from publisher side. Instead of pivoting that talent towards future-proofing their catalogues against Windows dependency, they binned them, handed out redundancy packages and told shareholders margins look healthier now. See, I want you to walk away from this video with absolute clarity on what's actually happening here. Valve built Proton in partnership with Codeweavers. Not a massive multinational studio, not a 10,000 person development army, a focused collaboration between a relatively small team of dedicated engineers. And what did that focused collaboration achieve? 90% of Windows games running on Linux. Over 24,000 titles playable through a compatibility layer that didn't before then. Steam's Deck Verified program has certified over 21,000 games as playable. Proton gets regular updates, adding new titles, fixing bugs, and improving performance across thousands of existing games simultaneously. A small team did what billion-dollar publishers claim is economically impossible. Valve isn't even charging for Proton. It's open source. They're doing this because they understand that platform diversity is a strategic investment, not a cost centre. Meanwhile, companies with budgets that make Valve look like corner shop are sat there going, "Oh, Linux just doesn't justify it commercially," while they pocket billions annually and fire engineers who could have solved this problem 3 times over. Growth in Linux gaming isn't just coming from Steam Deck sales alone anymore either. Desktop Linux distributions are seeing higher adoption independent of handheld hardware. Bazite is one of the fastest growing gaming-focused distros. Cashy OS is climbing. People are actively choosing to install Linux on their main rigs because Windows keeps getting worse with forced AI integrations, telemetry overload, and hardware gates that punish loyalty. Steam machines are coming back. Steam Frame's on its way. Valve's building an entire hardware ecosystem around Linux. And publishers who aren't ready for that are going to be scrambling when 3% becomes 5, then 7, then double digits. Forget economics, screw technical barriers, and fuck off with your anti-cheat limitation bollocks. It's pure, undiluted laziness from an industry that had rather coast Windows dependency than actual engineering work. And every laid-off developer sitting at home right now, wondering why they got binned while the former employer posts record profits, is living proof for exactly how backwards these priorities have become. I know Linux isn't perfect, and I know not every gamer's ready to jump ship from Windows tomorrow morning. But if you're a publisher watching this market grow at 57% year on year and your response is still, nah, don't make sense, then you deserve every bit of irrelevance that's coming your way when it kicks off. But I want to hear your thoughts on this. Are you a Linux gamer? Are you considering a jump to Linux? Drop a comment below. And YouTube reckons you'll enjoy this video on screen next. So go check that out, and I'll see you there, you magnificent